Hi, good morning, everybody. We're just waiting for a few stragglers to come in, and then we'll probably start our meeting in a couple minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Commentaries for the ICC. And the second volume, but not the first. And I've been out for a while.
I have it on the conflict.
Oh, you don't have the hard copy?
I do, but it's at home.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay,
You don't want to know the conflict? I have one. I know I have it.
no, it's fine. I'll look at the 18 version.
Good morning, Mason.
Mara.
Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
How are you?
Can you hear
Good
me?
morning, Mason.
Here you are.
Can
Can you hear me?
Yeah, a friendly face. It's always nice to see you.
Materials and put it to approve.
Cynthia.
Hey guys.
You sent me an email this week.
Yeah.
Our pre-meet social hour
So
in
is
a
that just a
minute, huh?
revision or
We'll
was
do
it
a
already issued?
pre-minute.
Yeah,
Kiara?
that was an old email I saw.
Is that
Is that
you?
Steve that we can hear unmuted, or
This is
I
an
think
old
somebody
email.
had
Yeah.
a
Last one.
live
Yeah,
mic
just
going?
I just, yeah, you just moved up over.
Yeah, it's just an old
Looks
email.
like Luis Gonzalez.
No, yo mute tu espacio.
All right, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and just mute everybody. So when you start speaking, if you could just unmute yourself. So we can go ahead and get started. We can go ahead and call our meeting to order 10:33. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our chapter meeting. So today we'll have our roll call. We'll have Mike Perez, our Vice President.
Hi, everyone.
Jovi Estremos, our Treasurer.
Hi everyone.
Perla Herrera, our Secretary. And Louis Vasquez, our Press President, which organized that great event at the Grammy Museum.
Hello, everyone.
And we'll go ahead and let's see who we have here for our past presidents and honorary members. So, of course, we have Cynthia Zavala. Aura
guys.
Sargassian. Yes. Aura, past president and an honorary member.
Hello, everyone.
Kiara Barnett, thank you for
Good
joining us.
morning. Happy Valentine's.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have forgotten. So thanks for the reminder. Let's see. We have Ron Tagaguchi.
Morning,
Thanks for
everyone.
joining us.
Morning, Mr. President Guillermo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mason. We have Mason Dudar.
Good morning.
Is there anyone else that I'm missing? If I'm missing you, please chime in and remind me.
I don't see anyone else.
Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and drop our previous minutes into the chat. So we'll go ahead and have the general board, if we could approve the past minutes.
Is Paul Armstrong going shy? Our honorary member who's staying quiet.
Actually, my voice is thrashed right now, but thank you.
Yeah. What'd you do? More than 5 days of training in a row?
Right.
Would that were the case, but yeah, just too much talking. You're absolutely right.
Motion to approve. I get to do that now. This is
Right.
Cynthia.
Thank you. If we could have a second to approve the previous meeting minutes.
This is Paul second.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the meeting minutes approved. And we'll go moving on to our communications. So we just have a few communications from the membership or the board. So Mike, if you want to go ahead and provide your update.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So just a quick announcement. It's a save the month, not a save the date, but we have our training matrix and we're planning on doing that the end of May. So be on the lookout for the email when that goes out. It's a full day training. Usually we provide lunch for the attendees and we try to target inspections, plan check, training classes for everyone who attends. But anyways, be on the lookout for that. It is a limited event capacity, so whenever it comes out, please sign up. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mike. And if we could have our treasurer update from Jovi.
Hi, everybody. Currently, we have about 6,093 and 8 cents in the bank account. Please sign up and finish up your follow up with your due payments for the membership. And if you have any questions, just let us know.
All right, great. And then an additional update. So our yearly annual budget is posted on the website. So in our next general meeting, we'll be asking the general membership to approve that. So if everyone could just take a look at that, and we'll vote on it next month on our next meeting. And then our update from our secretary, which is Perla Herrera from Glendale.
Hi, everyone. So this is just a friendly reminder that you will be receiving some new credits for the training today, and I'll be sending those out within the next week or so. So you must be registered to receive the credits. So if you're not, you can go ahead and drop your email in the chat box, and then we'll record that for you and get you sent out.
All right, thank you, Perla. And then our past president, Louis.
He may be muted.
Louis, are you muted? So, I can go ahead and just provide his update. So if we could have everybody just remember, we do have our committees. One of them is our admin committee. Unfortunately, we did lose our co-chair. So Farouk definitely could use the help. So definitely support our committees. Currently, we have our inspection committee with Jim Brewster from the city of Santa Monica, and Farouk with our admin committee. So if there's anyone that wants to support any of the other committees, definitely the admin committee as a co-chair, please do send us an email because we could always use the support for that. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our committee reports. Mike, I think you attended the admin committee yesterday. If you want to provide an update for the admin committee.
Yeah, sure. So the committee meets on the second Wednesday of every month. Yesterday was the first meeting, and it was the 11th. Usually it's held virtually from 3 to 4. I would recommend anyone who's interested in all things related to admin to join the committee. Yesterday, we discussed AB 671, I believe, and it was in relation to accelerated restaurant plan approval. As well, we discussed self-serve, and we had a very, I would say, energetic discussion about sprinklers, ADUs, and SB9s. So, I mean, I think it's always good to get inputs. There's different jurisdictions who join. We even have sometimes San Diego on those meetings. And so when you have these things that come up administratively, it's always good to see what's happening with different cities as well, County, LA, Long Beach, Hermosa Beach. So I would encourage anyone who's interested to join those meetings.
All right, thank you, Mike. And yeah, anyone, if you're not on the email list, please email any one of us, and we'll definitely add you to the list, so we can have you join that as well. And if we have anyone from the Fire Life Safety Committee, let's see, I don't think.
Okay, that would mean that I'll update. So for the fire and life safety, they haven't scheduled the next meeting. They will do so. So we'll keep you posted. That should be coming up soon around March, and we'll let you know if you have any topics related to that you want to work on as a discussion with both Joseph Human and Rafael Escobar. Please let us know, and then we'll pass it along. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jovi. And if we have Jim from the inspection committee. Yeah, I don't think he's joining us today, but as an update, so they do have their upcoming meeting, which will be posted on the website. We'll be sending an email, which will be February 24th for the inspection committee. So definitely make sure to let your inspectors and everyone else is always welcome to join as well. So moving on to our organizational reports. So we have Karen Beeb here for the ICC.
Thank you so much. I will be quick and expedient. I have 7 topics that I'd like to share in my 3 minutes. Let me see, I'm going to time myself. You know, I never pay attention to how long I talk, so we'll see how long that this goes. My name is Karen. I am your ICC Government Relations Regional Manager. I'm your resource, so anytime you have a question about the Code Council, whether it's certs or training or books, let me know. My job is to be that resource for you. You can email me, call me, text me. Contact information is here. If you lose it, you can find me underneath the website. Under the wheel, there's an adopt button, and the adopt button will take you to our government relations page. At the very bottom of the page, there is a link to our newsletter. The newsletter is also sent out to your board. But if any of you are really eager to get it right away, you can email me. I can add you to my friends list, and I'll email it to you as well at the beginning of the month. A few things, as I said, I have 7 items. 1, we have a special edition IRC available for purchase on our website dedicated to our Native American code officials. This is kind of in conjunction with our new NACO code official group. It has a lot of tributes here as far as the design and the artwork was done by one of our Native American code officials, as well as the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi in southern Michigan are featured as far as the photographs here. These are their photos of residential projects that have been built. They are also stand out because they were ahead of their state. Being their own sovereign nation, they adopted a more modern building code than the state of Michigan at the time. So love to see them leading the way. And so again, this is available for purchase on our website. We have CFPI, California Fire Prevention Institute, around the corner, not far away, up the street, if you will, in Santa Barbara. Happens March 2nd. It kicks off that day, and ICC has a training session that I would love to have all of you attend. It's called Leading and Influencing Change in Model Codes Effective Participation in the ICC Code Development Process. So if you haven't ever participated at the model code level, this is a great training to learn more about that, what that looks like, how you can participate. We'll follow a code change proposal through the process so you can see where you might interject and how that proposal evolves. So that's happening in March. We'll have a booth there as well. And then we have Women in Construction Week happening globally. But what ICC is looking for is input from our members, especially our female members, our building safety professionals. We'd love to have you give us your input, your advice, share your journey with us for the best of all of our future female women in construction moving forward. So this simple form is available on our website. The link also went out in the newsletter, and a follow-up email that I sent out to was due February 20th. Oh my gosh, that's it. I just got my alarm saying I'm done. I'm going to take another 10 seconds. 1.
Yeah, Karen, go as long as you would like.
No. This is really helpful, I think, for all of us to be time sensitive. So if you're looking to serve at an ICC committee opportunity, we have till April 1st to apply. These are available in many different fashions. You can be a part of our code interpretation committee, talking about how the code should be interpreted. I know that sometimes it's not as clear as we wish it were. You can participate in our code action committees, the CACs, as far as future development of codes. We also have our code development committee, which Paul Armstrong could, maybe he has served on all of these, but I know for sure he has been very active in the code development committee. So if you guys have questions about this, we still have plenty of time to think about it. This graphic came off of our website, and it gives you an idea of kind of the time commitment, whether it's virtual only or if there are in-person meetings that are required as well for travel that is covered by the Code Council. So that wouldn't be something you'd have to be concerned about if you were selected. So be aware of that. And then March 15th is the deadline to apply for awards. CFPI was the winner last year for our Educator of the Year Award. Our Code Official of the Year Award went to the City of Malibu, Yolanda Bundy. So again, we want to see all of our hard work that you guys are doing be recognized. don't hesitate to really nominate yourself and be proud of the work that you and your colleagues are doing. So please participate in that process. New codes are available. You can get them in print from our web store, or you can subscribe digitally. And the last thing is April. If you're looking for something to do, please consider coming to Connecticut, participate in our leadership academy for all of our chapter leaders. Stay for our membership councils. I'm the staff liaison for our building membership council, and then it'll roll right into code development. We have our public comment hearings happening for the 2027 codes. Last chance for you to voice your opinion in support or opposition for code change proposals. And then even more importantly, all of our governmental members get to vote. So I know I've taken more than my 3 minutes. I really appreciate the challenge. I'm going to make it a challenge for myself to keep being expedient, and I'll pass it back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, lots of good information. And yeah, I'll definitely be seeing you in April at the Chapter Leadership Academy. But yes, yeah, thank you for the update. It's all meaningful information, so it's fine. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So if we have a Calbo, I think Raj, if we have Raj on here.
Guillermo, this is Ron. I believe Raj had connection problems joining the meeting, but I could give a quick report to pinch it for him.
Okay.
If that's acceptable.
Perfect. Please.
Okay. So on the Calbo front, for legislation, which we are all interested in, the legislative season has just started. Our legislative, Calbo Legislative Committee has met. Matt Wheeler kicked that off. And at this time, not a lot of significant bills have been introduced, but I think that's just delaying the inevitable, that more of the things that affect building and code officials will be coming up. Preliminarily, we expected more on fire, we expected more on housing, but haven't seen that yet. But we will provide a report throughout the year, and Calbo's position on support or rejection. And probably the other key thing for Calbo is the annual meeting coming up. That is going to be in Santa Clara, and it's going to be April 12th to the 16th. And we have a lot of interesting programs coming up, things that are topical. And together with that, we have our Calbo Fellowship Dinner at the Winchester Mystery House on Wednesday evening. So that'll be something to see, together with state agencies that will be there for the usual reports for our Monday, and as well as a educational forum throughout the week. So I believe the room block is nearly sold out, but still try to get your reservations in for this gala event that we have planned coming up, and real soon. And if you haven't seen it, we have our Calbo logo that is patterned after the Super Bowl. So some more special things coming out from Calbo. And as far as Calbo news, that might be it. Anything else? No? Okay. So yeah, go to the Calbo website and take a look at our registration for the Calbo annual meeting. And Guillermo, that's about all for Calbo.
All right, great. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, that sounds exciting at the Winchester House. Yeah, we'll just make sure not to look for any violations, right? But no, looking forward to that. So let's see. Next update, the California Energy Commission.
Hello. Good morning, all. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, please do.
All right. You guys see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So my name is Gagandeep, and this is my contact information. And if you have any question, anything, so our job is to provide training resources and understanding for energy code to assist you all in your job of enforcing the energy code. So if you have any question, this is my email address. You can always shoot an email to me. So, and then a couple points from our last business meeting from January 21st. So we approved the Right Energy Title 24 version 2025.2.0 for 2026 Energy Code, and California State Pipe Trades Council. So we approved them as a acceptance test technician certification provider for lighting controls. And there were a few local ordinances for City of Santa Cruz, Palo Alto, Encinitas, and San Rafael. Most of them for electric readiness requirements for new single-family buildings. And then our next meeting is actually it was yesterday. All right, then the compliance software for 2026. So these are our new softwares, updated ones for 2025 Energy Code. It's CBEC 2025.2.01, and the older version, they were all expired on January 7th, 2026. And then we have Energy Pro 10.0. And if you guys have any question regarding non-res or multifamily, you can reach out to cbec@energy.ca.gov, and for residential, cbec-res@energy.ca.gov. And 2025 Energy Code, as I mentioned, so that it is active and effect since January 1st, 2026. So please use the updated compliance softwares and the forms. And if you have looking for any resources, so please do visit our website. So I have so you can scan this barcode and it will take you to that web page. And then 2028, so we're already working on that. So we are in the pre-rule making timeline. So again, we have a web page. Please do visit. And for 2028, so we already have CBEC 2028.0.1. It's just a revision software. And then a couple announcements regarding ECC. So again, we are updating our web pages for ECC provider for energy code compliance, which is new one, not hers anymore. So we are updating our web pages regarding those. And we were, it was brought to our attention that there was a CalCerts, it was an unauthorized CalCerts web page. So we worked on that, and so that web page was removed as well. And again, if you have any question regarding ECC providers or ECC, please reach out to seo@energy.ca.gov. And our hotline, so I'm pretty sure you guys have used it in the past, or you guys have been using this. So our hotline submission form, so please fill out that form, reach out to us and provide us as much as information as you guys can. And again, calls, we are not taking live calls. Call us, leave a message, and we will get back to you guys. And then Energy Code Support Center. So this is our webpage where our outreach and education unit. So we put all the resources on this one. So like recently we put at ADU, frequently asked questions, and commercial kitchens, and controlled environmental horticultures. So yeah, whenever we wrap up something, so we post it on our webpage. Then Blueprint newsletter. So we recently, I think in December, we released our last fall 2025 blueprint, but the new one is coming up in a week or so. So in our last one, so these are all the topics we include, which includes non-residential summary of changes, then even AB 130 informational bulletins. So we answered a few questions on that as well. And then ASHRAE Guideline 36 for 2025 Energy Code, and CBEC software updates, and a few more. And then this is our outreach schedule. So we did training for Town of Truckee, and I did training yesterday for City of LA on significant changes on single family. And we are doing another training for Iran on 226 for single family changes for 2025. And these are our local rents. Again, they have a lot of trainings and resources, so please reach out their websites as well. And then Energy Code Ace, yes. So it's one of our partners who work along with us for Energy Codes. So they provide free training as well, and they have a lot of resources on their website as well. So that is it from my side for today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then, yeah, you gave me a good transition right over to Energy Code Ace. If we have Dave on here. No, okay. And then, let's see, CIOSC, that'll be an organizational report and relationship that we're currently working on, thankfully with Karen, assisting with that. So we should regularly see that coming up in our general meetings with having CIOSC providing an update. And if we have any other chapters that would like to provide an update, if we have any chapter board members. If not,
Yeah, I was going to give a brief report on CBOAC, the county building officials, but I wasn't.
No, please do. Yeah,
I wasn't prepared. So really, the only thing is we're working. We're back working on also like Calbo. We're working on legislative, issues. And we're going to be hopefully collaborating with them and other organizations because this is becoming a real problem for all of us. So we want to join forces and form these coalitions so we can help each other and expand our influence, if you want. So basically, that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Fawad. Yeah, definitely something we all need to work on together. And then I also just wanted to provide kind of an update for the Ventura chapter. So they are having their ABM on February 28th. So if I'm sure they would appreciate the support. So if anyone wants to go, please do look at their website and join them on February 28th. And moving on from that, we're going to be having our training session here on the 2025 Multifamily Energy Efficiency Updates, which is going to be presented by Nick Brown from the Build Smart Group. So Nick, I will hand this over to you.
All right, super. Thank you, Guillermo. And although Dave Vintner wasn't here today, I think I can predict what his update would have been for Energy Code Ace, and that's the Energy Code Ace conference taking place March 4th and 5th at their facility in Irwindale. There'll be a lot of 2025 code updates there, but also a lot of kind of interesting topics that are outside of energy code. So encourage you to check out that. It's up on their website, everything free, and they always do a good job out there. So I'm Nick Brown. I run a small energy consultancy out of Long Beach, Go Beach, called Build Smart Group. I do energy code compliance, but then about half of my work is for Energy Code Ace, updating fact sheets and developing classes. I teach the classes for single family and non-res architects, for instance, some of the solar and battery classes. And this one is maybe my personal favorite, no offense to the others, but it's brand new, so I hope you like it. It's on ventilation. We've never had a class before specifically focused on ventilation. And so we get to go into some of the whys and how these ended up in the energy code, in addition to what the code requirements are. And the changes in the 25 code cycle on multifamily buildings in this area, to me, are among the headlines overall for all the code changes this code cycle. So tell me if you agree by the end. As Guillermo said, I'll be monitoring the chat, but please feel free to unmute yourself and blurt out questions as we go too. I'd rather handle it at the time. We've got 90 minutes planned for this. And then once we finish the ventilation section, we're going to do a quick update on other multifamily code changes. So hopefully that sounds good. That's what you signed up for. But if there's anything in particular you guys want to cover, please drop it in the chat. And ICC is going to handle continuing education units on this. Okay, so Gagandeep introduced you to Energy Code ACE. Good update, Gagandeep. Our offerings are all free at energycodeace.com. Hopefully many of you are already using them. They break down into tools, training, and resources. Tools include the Virtual Compliance Assistant, which is an online tool to take you through prescriptive form creation. So you can send your applicants at the building counter there if they're not sure how to get what they need. Also Reference ACE, which is a keyword search term. We've got all kinds of training. These short code breakers are meant to be 1 hour for your chapter meetings like these, but we have longer sessions that are being updated for 2025, especially the ones for plans examiners and building inspectors, designed for you guys as really our #1 target audience that we've got to educate each code cycle. And then our fact sheets, which probably many of you are already using. We've updated most of those for 2025 code already, but some are still being released every week. So we like to use these 3 icons when we're talking about energy code. You'll see them in the upper right corner of the screen. The gavel if something's a mandatory code requirement, the RX icon if it's prescriptive standard, and the scales if it's performance. The difference being you can never get out of those mandatory requirements that are triggered. Mechanical ventilation, by the way, one of the key mandatory elements of the energy code. But the prescriptive standards all only have to be met if you're using the prescriptive compliance approach. Under the performance approach, you're allowed trade-offs between those prescriptive standards. So you might not install a whole house fan in a climate zone where it's prescriptive standard and make up for that elsewhere with some other part of your design. So look for those icons as we go through today. So this is a combination of the ventilation and the multifamily update. We've got it in these sections: indoor air quality, the code requirements for indoor air quality, best practices for IAQ, mandatory measures for multifamily, prescriptive measures for multifamily, and then we'll point you to some additional resources, including short bite videos, which are new on our YouTube channel. The 25 code is here, took effect for all projects applying for permit on or after January 1, 2026, with the only exception being for those of us in LA burn areas, they're allowed to continue using the 2022 code for those fire rebuilds according to the governor's executive order. Also allowed to not install solar on those if they so choose, although of course we recommend our clients install solar anyway. These are the occupancy types that are covered by the energy code now as of the 2025 code cycle. Laboratories added for the first time. That used to be my example of an occupancy type that was not covered by the energy code, so I've got to get a new example now. A small change in compliance metrics, and I know that your plan checkers are probably not digging too deep into how these compliance metrics work, but when using the performance compliance method, we've now switched from these TDV and source metrics for new construction, which we had in the last code cycle, to LSC, long-term system cost. In practice, these are going to work similarly to in the past. It's a rebrand of sorts, but the units have changed. They're now expressed in dollars instead of abstract, non-meaningful units. And there will be some different signals to your energy consultants in those LSC factors as a result of updating them every 3 years. Note that additions and alterations continue to just have the single compliance metric, which now becomes long-term system cost efficiency. And here's what's in those. Again, efficiency, like we've always used for compliance, blocking and tackling, insulation, mechanical systems. Total adds the renewable system, and source is that proxy for carbon emissions, which penalizes gas systems when heat pumps are prescriptive standard. So you're going to need all three of those to be met to show compliance for a multifamily project in 2025 code. As Gagandeep reminded you, we've switched names on our field verification technician program, no longer called HERS, now called EC or ECC for Energy Code Compliance Program. So we're all relearning that term and doing a massive search and replace among all Energy Code ACE offerings to get those updated. So we like to pause and get you involved at various parts of the class. So please put your answer in the chat. Which energy efficiency rating is used to evaluate multifamily building performance under the 2025 code? There's 57 of you, so I'm not stopping until I get 56 answers. No, that's right. Long-term system cost. Very good. A new low-rise multifamily building requires field verification of QII. That is a beautiful installation job. Under the 25 code, who must perform this work? Scrawled the wrong thing there, didn't I? Yeah, you all got it. EC-raters, which to me sounds like a Dr. Seuss term. I think it's going to be fun. All right, let's move on to indoor air quality. It's a personal passion of mine. I've got 2 heat recovery ventilators at my house, one serving the ADU and one serving the main house. I did it not so much to save energy as I did to enhance indoor air quality for cognitive performance of people living here, better sleep. So it's something I've studied a fair bit. We'll focus mostly on the code requirements, but hopefully you'll enjoy learning a little more about how it came to be in the energy code and why it matters too. So we regulate indoor air quality because our homes are built tighter than before. We're spending more time indoors than before. And without proper ventilation, ventilation's the only practical method we've come up with so far, other than source control, not bringing it in the first time, to make sure our indoor environments are safe to be in, because toxins can build up inside, from the foam in our furniture to new rugs to cleaning products under the kitchen sink. Just cooking can create indoor air quality pollutants. And these can cause health problems in sensitive populations. Just because all of us grew up around gas cooking and things in our indoor environment and we're fine, doesn't mean that some more sensitive families aren't going to be triggered by these toxins. And we know we've got an asthma problem in California, with 1 in 7 Californians reporting issues with asthma at some time in their life. Asthma, one of those respiratory conditions that's been tied directly to indoor air quality. So for these reasons, healthy indoor air is critical. And I like this chart, which came from a Harvard study. This is based on tests they did on Harvard undergraduates. And they gave them cognitive tests and then measured their performance on those tests at various CO2 concentrations. And you can see here that especially the more challenging cognitive tasks like information usage and strategy, their performance plummeted as the indoor air quality got worse, as the CO2 concentration exceeded, safe limits, which by some definitions is 800 parts per million. Other people use 1,000. And the CEC recognized this and other research and put these quotes in some of their materials. Increasing ventilation rates will reduce respiratory illness and associated sick leave, reduce sick building symptoms, and increase productivity. And this study came up with the soundbite, reduced ventilation brought down people's ability to think and perform higher order analysis by 60%. So there's the justification for having indoor air quality in our homes. And if you have a home office, having a source of continuous filtered fresh air in those home offices. Another data point, we went through COVID and got much more conscious of how our buildings function to improve health outcomes or make them worse. And this study, which I've given you a link to here, found that setting ventilation to the code requirement, the minimum, was equivalent to vaccinating 50 or 60% of occupants against the flu in preventing infection. So another data point pointing to the importance of IAQ and why our codes regulate it and why it's so important to include in our buildings. We also saw some building owners increase their airflow rates of fresh air during COVID, filter return air with more focus, and add some aftermarket systems like air cleaners and UV lights. So the Energy Code recognizes these forms of ventilation as possible options. In supply ventilation, outdoor air is brought in and pushed into the building using a supply air system that creates positive pressure in the building. And so the stale air leaks out through the building envelope. We're bringing in fresh air directly. In exhaust ventilation, the flow is reversed. We're pulling stale air out of the building, and fresh air is assumed to come in behind it through leaks in the building envelope. We create a negative pressure across the boundary, and that incoming quote unquote fresh air could be from anywhere, an attached garage, a crawl space, a dog run that may or may not be healthy. So for this reason, supply is generally considered better than exhaust. And yet exhaust ventilation always been the predominant method in California for ventilating buildings. Now, balanced ventilation is these two combined. We're bringing in fresh air with a supply ventilation fan. We're taking out stale air with an exhaust fan. And so we have roughly neutral pressure, and that means far less uncontrolled airflow across the building envelope. Okay, what we're showing here is an HRV, a recovery ventilator style of balanced ventilation, where we have a heat exchanger core that saves us a little bit of energy on our HVAC system by using the conditioned air's temperature to temper the incoming outdoor air. So there's energy savings associated with that. We can do these in multifamily buildings individually for each dwelling unit, or we can do them as central systems. And we can do them as one appliance like the heat recovery ventilator, or as separate systems like shown in this picture. Now, under the 2025 code, here's the headline: exhaust ventilation no longer allowed in new multifamily buildings. I'll let that sink in for a second. That's what prompted us to make this class. It's a big change. Last code cycle, if you were following the energy code, multifamily builders had the choice of balanced ventilation or exhaust ventilation with blower door testing of the units to show that they're tight. And I thought most multifamily builders, to avoid blower door testing, would install balanced ventilation systems. By and large, I was dead wrong. they chose to continue installing exhaust ventilation, most of them, and do the blower door testing. But now here we are in the 25 code cycle, and now what's required, which I'll cover in a minute, is balanced ventilation or supply ventilation and blower door testing of the envelope. Yes, Jorge, for single family under section 150, single family still allows exhaust. But remember, low-rise multifamily no longer lives in section 150. So low-rise multifamily is governed by this new requirement along with high-rise multifamily. This occurs in sections 160, 170. So here's some quotes from the case report when these proposals were being evaluated. The primary goal of this requirement is to reduce pollutant transfer with adjacent units, which is reported to be a common complaint by tenants. So when you explain this to your applicants, when you've got a multifamily situation with shared walls and roofs and floors, an exhaust ventilation system may not be bringing in fresh air, it may be bringing in neighbors' stale air. Hence the need for compartmentalization testing to make sure these units can operate semi-independently. Next quote, the requirement for mechanically driven supply air will ensure ventilation air comes from the outdoors rather than neighboring units. And compartmentalization reduces pollutant transfer between adjacent units, thereby improving IAQ and reducing odor and noise transfer. So those are the justifications for the code requirements we're about to cover. Questions so far? All right. So here's section 160, the multifamily chapter. All new multifamily dwelling units must have continuously operating mechanical ventilation for indoor air quality, just like we've always had, or an equivalent intermittently controlled ventilation system meeting specific control requirements. In my experience, it's easier to just put in the continuously operating mechanical ventilation system than to cycle it on and off and prove that it functions equivalently. Although people from other states tend to really like those systems, just not that practical to meet California Energy Code. So there's two methods permissible now in new multifamily buildings, supply and balance ventilation. Exhaust can only be used for altered existing dwelling units under the 25 code, and as Jorge points out, single family. Common use areas are treated like non-residential zones, and those will need to meet their own mandatory ventilation requirements, which we'll cover in the second half today. So how is the minimum airflow rate calculated for dwelling units? Well, it uses this ASHRAE 62.2 formula, the same one that's used for single family. So the airflow is a function of the conditioned floor area and the number of bedrooms. The CF1R form that your energy consultant produces will show that minimum airflow rate. And just a quick note, it differs in different climate zones slightly because of different wind ratios, wind speeds. And so the airflow of the fan is added to the airflow from infiltration that's assumed according to that wind rate and the height of the building and a complicated formula. So just suffice it to say, the windier the climate zone, the less the airflow required for your fan. Also required is a maximum 1 zone on sound. This, by the way, will also apply if you're adding a multifamily dwelling unit onto an existing multifamily building. So the compartmentalization testing, which I just said in the last code cycle was required only if you had exhaust ventilation, not required if you had supply or balance, well, now becomes a requirement no matter what method you have, mandatory requirement. And so, for instance, this one bedroom unit shown in this floor plan here, 744 square feet, would have a total surface area of roughly 2,400 square feet of envelope, walls, floor, and ceiling. So to come in under the 0.3 CFM per square foot, we'd need to come in at about 720 CFM of air leakage using the blower door test. So you're going to see more blower door tests of multifamily buildings. And if they fail this, they're going to need to seal holes until they pass it. California, by the way, quite a bit behind some other states on requiring blower door test in buildings. So that's going to require an EC-rater. Also in the category of mandatory requirements for ventilation is filtration. You all know we went to a MERV 13 requirement on ducted returns for HVAC systems. Well, we also have a MERV 13 filtration requirement for all supply fans bringing in outdoor air. Whether they're part of a balanced system or just a supply system, you've got to have a MERV 13 filter on that. This ensures that, let's say we've got a forest fire going on affecting air quality in your area. Well, that MERV 13 filter is going to really benefit those occupants to filter out much of those particulate matters. They also, by the way, catch things like PM 2.5 from diesel particulates and even bacteria and viruses. So a real nice selling point on health and safety of buildings. There is an exception on the ducted HVAC systems that you can use a 1-inch filter, but you have to meet this equation. Easier to just use that 2-inch deep filter. We've also got a mandatory requirement for local exhaust systems. Every kitchen and bathroom have to have exhaust systems. These requirements are unaffected by the whole dwelling unit IAQ fan prohibition on exhaust. Don't get that confused. And bathrooms need to have a 50 or more CFM airflow with on-demand controls, or also acceptable 20 or more CFM with continuous operation. I ran into this with my ADU. I put in a heat recovery ventilator, pulled 20 CFM out of the bathroom. That allowed me to vault the ceiling and not put in that bathroom exhaust fan. Kitchens have a local exhaust requirement as well. This table here, I don't see on enough plan sets. I think every architect should include this with a box around their dwelling unit and whether they're using electric or gas cooking, because it specifies the minimum airflow rate for your kitchen range vent hood. And notice it's higher for natural gas cooking and it's higher for smaller units, because those smaller units have higher concentration of the air pollutants, need to expel it more quickly. Now, if we have a balanced or supply ventilation system, we also have to have those filters and heat recovery cores, if applicable, accessible for maintenance. Otherwise, these systems are the filters are going to bridge over and the systems are not going to operate as intended. And so this is new for 2025, that this accessibility requirement is a mandatory requirement. No more than 10 feet above a walking surface. So think about your multifamily buildings. How are they going to provide in a 3 and 4 and 5-story multifamily building for accessibility of these filters? They really need to think about that. Can't be bolted to the exterior of the building, right? So that's going to challenge designers to figure out the location of their ventilation fans. And Joint Appendix 17 details these FID requirements. FIDs are required, fault indicator displays, if your filter is not accessible from within 10 feet. Okay. That way the FID alerts occupants or maintenance staff that there's a problem with the unit, needs to be looked at, because if it's not accessible, otherwise it's just going to keep running in failure mode. So there's two scenarios where FID may be required. One, if you've got a system in an attic, that FID needs to provide a signal to the occupants that something's wrong with the system. There needs to be an attic hatch with integrated ladder and a walkway from the access to the unit. So that's a mandatory requirement if you have your ventilation system located in an attic. Now, on the prescriptive standard side of things, if you have an HRV serving individual dwelling units, the FID gets you a little extra credit. Think of it that way. Or put another way, FID is standard, and if you leave that FID off your HRV, sorry for all the three-letter acronyms, you give up about 10% of the compliance credit in my experience running these energy models. So it's not a mandatory requirement. You see the prescriptive icon, but it is worth a little extra credit. Now, if they're complying via the prescriptive approach, they're going to have that FID with the recovery ventilator system. So two different scenarios for FIDs to come into play, one mandatory, one prescriptive. Now check this out. In these colored climate zones, a balanced ventilation is mandatory, but a heat recovery system is prescriptive. So put another way, if you're building a new multifamily building in these colored climate zones, it's prescriptive standard to have heat recovery as that ventilation system. So if you're in Palmdale, Lancaster, climate zone 14, and you build that multifamily building without HRVs, you're going to take a penalty and you're going to need to make up for that elsewhere. And if complying via the prescriptive method, you can't, right? You're going to need to use the performance method because this is a prescriptive standard requirement in climate zones 1, 2, 4, 11 through 14, and 16. Okay, so not only did we make exhaust ventilation not allowed under the 25 code for multifamily buildings, but we made heat recovery prescriptive standard in much of the state. You see why I think multifamily ventilation was worthy of a special presentation and that this was one of the biggest areas of change in the code this cycle. The code also specifies a minimum efficiency rate. That's what percent of the heat gets swapped between the exhaust and the supply, minimum fan efficacy, and it is a EC verified measure because indoor air quality ventilation is a health and safety feature that's deemed really important, always EC verified. Did I hear someone asking a question? No. Okay. Notice this first bullet. The energy code doesn't care whether it's an ERV or an HRV. Both have heat recovery to them. ERVs also have moisture swapping between the streams. That's the key difference. But the energy code doesn't care which is installed. But your applicants are going to get paralyzed by this decision, I promise you, and want you to help them making a decision. Supply ventilation can only be done via the performance approach because balanced is the standard. So let me pause here. What options are permissible under the 25 code for ventilation of new multifamily dwelling units? Yeah, that's right. Supply and balanced. Very good. Which rooms in a multifamily dwelling unit are required to have local exhaust?
I don't know. I gotta be on this one. If it's
Yeah, same
over
answer,
12.
right? Bathroom and kitchen. Yeah, good job. You all got it. And in what climate zones are recovery ventilators prescriptively required for multifamily? Do you remember what climate zones I said? Yeah, very good. We like to call these the heating dominated climate zones because they're the ones where over the course of the year, they typically use more energy for heating than cooling. So the Sierra is 16, 14 includes Joshua Tree, for instance. That's where heat recovery tends to have the biggest benefit. Now let me do a quick section here on best practices for IAQ ventilation. As you inspectors and building officials are out in the field, you're going to get asked to help these applicants figure out how to comply with this stuff. I asked Allison Bales, the author of this book, really good book, by the way, on building science. He's an Atlanta-based HVAC contractor. I asked him about this constant debate in green building circles on ERV versus HRV. Again, the energy code doesn't care, but the difference is that ERVs have membranes that allow some humidity through them, whereas HRVs do not. They're only swapping heat. And the book says the choice between an ERV and an HRV should land on ERV most of the time. It's only in mild climates where it doesn't get too cold, humid, or dry where HRVs make sense. Those happen to be the climates you all work in, don't they? So again, I tell my clients, I don't think you need to worry too much about that ERV, HRV decision. They're both going to serve your building pretty well. And here's a quick graphical representation of the heat recovery part of a recovery ventilation. You've got fresh air coming in from outside, and then we're showing a winter scenario on the left and a summer scenario on the right. So in the winter scenario, cold air, let's say it's a 40-degree day. Our indoor air is 70 degrees. That's shown at the stale air from home airflow, airstream. So what the recovery ventilator is going to do is it's going to warm up that 40-degree air with the outgoing 70-degree air. And instead of 40-degree air coming into the house, you're getting 60-degree air in. So you see how that benefits your HVAC system, because this could be 50 or 100 CFM operating continuously that your HVAC system doesn't have to heat or cool. In summer, on a 100-degree day, that 100-degree air, which would be coming in 100 degrees in a supply or exhaust ventilation scenario, now comes in at 86, let's say. So there's the energy savings part. The other beauty of recovery ventilators is the ability to duct the air. You see how these duct collars are set up to move the air throughout your dwelling unit. So you can put fresh filtered air behind closed bedroom doors at night, so you sleep better, into your home offices and living spaces, and then pull stale air out of your kitchen and your bathrooms where that's beneficial. So that's how these are typically set up, like in this cutaway diagram. HRV is pulling in fresh air, shown in blue, blowing that into the bedroom in this case and the living room, and pulling exhaust air from the kitchen and the bathroom. So in most cases, these require 2 penetrations through the building envelope, one for the fresh air and one for the exhaust. And there needs to be some provision for that MERV 13 filter on that fresh air intake stream. I did a quick chart of the compliance benefit of recovery ventilators in our 2025 software. I show it by climate zone in this chart here. So you can see it's an average 15% boost to your performance compliance metrics across climate zones, more in cooler climate zones, 1 through 5, 12 and 16. And you can juice that compliance credit with better recovery effectiveness, more efficient fans, and a little extra airflow, or equipping your system with an FID. And we've given you a link. We'll get you these slides. We've given you a link to a study that we did for SoCalGas on the performance of recovery ventilators. There's some other benefits of these systems. They can be used to meet mandatory requirements like that local exhaust requirement in bathrooms, and prescriptive requirements like the HRV being prescriptive standard in certain climate zones. Some recovery ventilators come equipped with enhanced features like boost mode that'll pull out high humidity when it's detected, or high CO2, demand controlled ventilation, or summer bypass feature where it allows that outside cool air in when that's helpful without recovery. So another question, how much performance credit is possible for multifamily projects using ERV HRVs? I know you're not energy consultants, but gives you an idea of how important that feature is when you're evaluating a project. Yeah, about 15% on average. So it's a big deal. If you have a project claiming it's going to have heat recovery using the performance method, and then you go and you inspect that project, no heat recovery, that's a big deal. That's not something you can ignore. What are some other benefits of recovery ventilators? Check all that apply here. Yeah, A and C. All of these apply. Yeah. I didn't even mention comfort, but item C says instead of bringing in outdoor air untempered, your occupants are going to be more comfortable with that incoming fresh air being tempered. All right, that's the end of our mechanical ventilation section. Are there any questions before we transition into the other key multifamily changes? No? All right. Well, if some come to you, drop them in the chat. We're going to cover first some of the mandatory changes, then we'll cover the prescriptive changes that affect multifamily buildings. First, when we say dwelling units, we're talking about units that provide complete independent living. When we say common use areas, we're talking about occupancies are spaces other than dwelling units, including community rooms, corridors, central restrooms, laundry rooms, that sort of thing, but not the non-residential occupancies of the building. Some changes on multifamily wall insulation. You'll see these in the single family code as well. Now, if you build a 2x4 wood framed assembly, it can have a U factor no more than 0.095, just slightly reduced, and that corresponds to R15 in the cavity. 2x6, slight change as well, corresponds to R21 in the cavity. So what this means is you can't build a multifamily building with 2x6 R19 walls today. R21 is the mandatory minimum. That is, unless you have continuous insulation that brings the U factor down under 0.069. Just a slight change there. Now, we just covered multifamily ventilation for dwelling units. Now let's look at code changes for common use areas. There's a new formula, and the minimum outdoor air rate is the larger of these two equations, the occupant-based equation and the area-based equation. I don't know about you, but when I've seen projects come across my desk, plan sets, I often see the engineers doing calculations on fresh air based on number of occupants that come in lower than my Title 24 derived area-based calculations. And I sometimes fight with them on that. I think this code change might help settle that, because it defines that it's to be the larger of the occupant-based equation and the area-based equation. And we've got a new set of tables showing these factors per occupant and per square foot. Here's one for various space types. Got a new one for spectator areas. So I encourage you to check that out. We've got some new mandatory requirements on domestic hot water systems in multifamily, the pipe insulation. Installation requirements, location, thickness, protection. So keep your eyes open for that. Here's a big one I like to highlight in all my classes. Heat pump water heaters becoming more common in single family and multifamily buildings. What's different about them is they pull the heat that they put in the water from the space around them. So it's really important to consider the location we choose and the airflow or air supply. So we've got new mandatory ventilation requirements for heat pump water heaters that cover all occupancies, non-res, single family, and multifamily in section 110. And here are the choices. You can either put your heat pump water heater in a large enough space, 100 cubic feet per kBTU per hour of the compressor. By the way, I haven't seen a lot of manufacturers who publish the compressor capacity of their heat pump water heaters, but most are 4,000 BTUs per hour, the typical 240 volt, 30 amp heat pump water heaters. So that would mean 400 cubic feet. By the way, it's the greater of the manufacturer's recommendation and this guideline. So if the manufacturer says you need 750 cubic feet, and that's bigger than this calculation, that's the one that matters. Now, if you can't put it in a big enough space, like your garage would be a big enough space, a laundry room would be a big enough space, most likely, then you need to put it in the bottom half of the screen in a place that's vented to another space via permanent openings so that it in effect is in a big enough room. That can be done with a fully louvered door. or high and low grills. And the total net free area, either way, needs to be 125 square inches plus 25 square inches per kBTU per hour of compressor. Again, we need to know from the manufacturer's literature what the compressor capacity is. So if you see these heat pump water heaters put in small closets, make sure they have the access to airflow governed by these two options. The last option, ducting. We can get them to, in effect, be in a large enough room if we duct the small room to a neighboring room or outside. Okay. All duct connections and penetrations need to be sealed, minimum R6 insulation on those ducts. And there's additional requirements if they're ducting only one of the inlet and the outlet. All right, I thought that was a big deal. We've had electric readiness provisions for single family for some time. We've got heat pump water heater readiness provisions for multifamily as well. So if our new multifamily dwelling units have individual gas or propane water heaters, meaning one per unit, they need to make space for a future heat pump water heater. 39 inches square footprint by 8 feet tall, with a condensate drain, with power for that future heat pump water heater, 125 volt if within 125 volt, yeah, with the circuit and saved space in the breaker panel to make it readily achievable to switch that gas or fossil fuel water heater to a heat pump in future. And that location we're setting aside for that future heat pump water heater also needs to think along the lines of those air supply requirements we just covered. Have fully louvered doors or high and low grills, or have 2 8-inch cap ducts for future ducting of that location. If we've got a central gas fossil fuel water heater, that's still allowed in multifamily buildings to have a central gas water heater with solar thermal, as we've had for a while now. It needs to be heat pump water heater ready too. These are mandatory requirements. So space reserved, sufficient air supply, condensate drain, and the electrical might be the biggest challenge. How do we show that we've reserved enough electrical capacity to serve a future heat pump water heater to replace the current gas one? Pool and spa systems. I'm working the pool and spa show this afternoon at the Long Beach Convention Center, where we're there at the Energy Code ACE table to make sure pool contractors and distributors know these new requirements. That if you're building a new pool that's heated or adding heating to an existing pool or spa, there's 5 options for you to heat that pool. And spoiler alert, none of them is gas as the primary. That's the big deal here. You can have a solar thermal pool heating system where the solar collector area is at least 60% of the pool and spa surface area. That, by the way, is 65% for non-res. And you can have anything backing that up. You can have a gas pool heater after the solar thermal. You can have electric. You can have heat pump. Second option, primary is your heat pump pool heater. They make these just like heat pump water heaters and HVAC heat pumps. And your supplementary heater can be anything, electric, gas. Third option, you hire a mechanical engineer to show that your heating system derives at least 60% of the annual energy from on-site renewable or recovered sources. Option 4, combination solar thermal and heat pump without a supplementary heater. And an option 5 is reserved for other options that the CEC's executive director may determine is equivalent. So that's a pretty big deal. And when I worked this pool and spa show last year, contractors were saying, wow, I need to pull more power to that pool subpanel than I did in the past if it's going to serve a heat pump pool heater instead of gas. Now, if we have supplementary electric resistance heat as part of this system, they need to be controlled such that they don't operate when the heat pump can manage the load alone. The cut-on temperature for the heat pump is higher than for the supplementary heating system, and the cut-off temperature for the heat pump is higher than the cut-off temperature for the supplementary system. So just like in HVAC, mechanical systems, there's new energy code requirements on supplementary resistance heating to make sure it doesn't eat too much into the savings of the heat pumps. Questions, comments? All right, a few prescriptive changes to cover. Love the chatter. In the area of envelope, this is the prescriptive table that summarizes a lot of key prescriptive standards. We've got some changes to cool roof, some slight changes shown here in orange in climate zones 10, 11, 13, and 15 for steep slope roofs. Low sloped roofs, when we've got non-attic roofs, have had additional climate zones added. So 6, 7, 8, for instance, this group works in those climate zones a lot, 6 and 8. Now there's a cool roof requirement for low sloped roofs in multifamily. Prescriptive, not mandatory, but still something you'll have to look for. Fenestration, some of the U factors have been reduced slightly to 0.28 in these climate zones, 0.3 in climate zone 8. All other fenestration, by the way, is the category that probably applies most to your low-rise and mid-rise multifamily buildings. The architectural windows category in the middle of the chart, as I understand it, are the ones where you've got significant wind shear, and so those windows need to be engineered to be a little bit stronger. You're allowed a little bit less energy efficiency for those types. So most of your projects, I think, are going to need to meet this last category. So just some slight changes there. We've got some changes in solar heat gain coefficients shown here. U factors as well on some of these, but nothing earth-shattering, I'd say. On the mechanical side, some changes, and this applies to non-res as well, to cooling tower efficiency. It used to be, the fan efficiency here, it used to be 60%, and now we've got different specs for different climate zones. And heat pumps. We just got used to the VCHP compliance option, variable capacity heat pumps that were great for ductless mini splits in our multifamily buildings. That's gone. That's gone. You should not see VCHP on your 25 code compliance forms. Instead, under the performance approach, we enter the SEER2, EER2, HSPF2, and capacity of the heat pump we're modeling, and it calculates a different credit according to how efficient that system is. So this means that compliance credit becomes possible for a wider range of heat pumps. Ducted mini splits, which formerly didn't qualify for that VCHP credit if they were mid-static, for instance, mixed ducted and ductless. So you'll see some changes there under the hood though. Now, for low-rise multifamily, the option was removed for gas tankless and propane tankless water heating to comply prescriptively. These are systems serving individual dwelling units. So now the only prescriptive option for low-rise multifamily is a heat pump water heater. High-rise multifamily, you can still use gas tankless individual water heaters though. That's 4 stories or more. Central water heating though, in multifamily, you can still use a central gas system with solar thermal systems providing 20 to 35% of your annual energy use. No change there. Or you can use a heat pump system, single pass. Hot water piping needs to be sized according to Appendix M. And 9 or more dwelling units triggers the requirement for master mixing valve and recirc. So which of these water heaters can be used prescriptively, serve a new dwelling unit in a 3-story multifamily building? Check all that apply. What do you think? Yeah, heat pump water heater, A is correct. What else? Well, B is correct too. Any size heat pump water heater is allowed prescriptively, but what isn't allowed is the gas tankless water heater serving individual dwelling units, low-rise multifamily. That's a change for 25, so that's why we put this question in here. Remember, high-rise multifamily with 4 habitable stories or more, you can still use individual gas tankless water heaters. Some small changes on lighting. The dwelling unit requirements generally match single family. Those are all mandatory. The common service areas match non-res. We removed the tailored method of compliance for indoor lighting. We found in studying the acceptance test and forms that we researched wasn't being used much. And the flexibility that it allowed, we've added into the area category method. So you'll see, for instance, in this chart reprinted for conference areas, we've given display and task allowances now under the area category method. Here's a section on dining areas that similarly adds some of those flexible features that people liked about the tailored method. Some small changes on solar and battery that I wanted to make sure I highlighted. Remember, our multifamily buildings require solar if they're low rise, and solar and battery if they're high rise, right? So the high rise multifamily has the solar and battery requirement, just like commercial buildings, non-res buildings, whereas low rise multifamily generally follows single family on this, only requires solar. And remember, if a project's exempt from solar, it's also exempt from battery. The two are inextricably linked. So when calculating the required solar system for a building, we've always had two alternate approaches. The CFA method based on the conditioned floor area of your building, and the SARA method based on the available roof space on your roof. And whichever was lower of those two calculations governed the code. Right? We've always had that. So in that way, SARA allowed an applicant to say, I can't install the full amount that the code wants me to by the CFA method. Therefore, I'm going to install some smaller amount. And in extreme cases, if there was no practical SARA, no solar would be required at all. Well, we've got some new factors to better tune our SARA calculation. Once we've got the roof space figured out, all the low slope SARA gets multiplied by 14 watts per square foot, all the steep slope by 18, and we add those together to get our SARA calculation for solar. And if that's less than the CFA calculation, then the SARA governs. Now, in either case, if the solar prescriptively required is less than 4 kilowatts, no solar is required. This was 1.8 kilowatts in the last code cycle. So that's a small change you'll want to watch. For low-rise multifamily, the calculations are following this table, which hasn't changed. Same table is used for single family. Conditioned floor area times factor A over 1,000 plus number of dwelling units times factor B. For high-rise multifamily, same SARA multipliers instituted in the code, same approach. The lower of the two calculations is what governs. So here's an example, low-rise multifamily. Actually, sorry, this is high-rise multifamily, 4 stories, 100,000 square feet. We find factor A in our chart, 1.82, and we get 182 kilowatts via the CFA method. Then we go to the SARA method. We've got 25,000 square feet of usable roof space times 18 gives 450 kilowatts. So the CFA method is lower, and that's the energy code requirement. Exceptions for low-rise multifamily. If you can't even find 80 contiguous square feet on that roof, no solar is required. And steep slope roofs, if they face north between 300 degrees and 90 degrees, they can be excluded from SARA. There's the 4 kilowatt exception, also exceptions for snow loads. High-rise multifamily, if the SARA is less than 3% of the conditioned floor area, no solar is required. Can anyone drop in chat when they think SARA might be less than 3% of the conditioned floor area? This is for high-rise multifamily. Well, our building could be in the shadow. Yeah, you could have a ton of HVAC on the roof. Yeah. We could be in the shadow of Mount San Jacinto in the Coachella Valley. Yeah, or no sun. And then the third option, which maybe didn't occur to you, really tall buildings, right? The SARA compared to the conditioned floor area could be less than 3%. Yes, there are exceptions for snow loads too. There you see the 4 kilowatt exception, less than 80 square feet exception. And by the way, your applicants can submit a solar shading report And any part of the roof that gets less than 70% annual solar access can be excluded from SARA 2. So that could be caused by mature trees, for instance. They'll need to demonstrate that to you, though, with a solar shading report using an approved software method by the CEC, and the CEC has a list of those on their website. Now, this last exception is new. If the load-serving entity doesn't provide a program where PV generation is compensated through virtual energy bill credits. If you're reading this going, what does that mean? Think virtual net metering, a way to allocate the production of a big solar array to the 20 or 50 or 100 occupants in the building. And there's no community solar program alternative, then there's no solar system required. Because think about it, otherwise your applicant would be hardwiring 3 panels to unit 1, 3 panels to unit 2, 4 panels to unit 3, and it becomes uneconomical pretty quickly. So here's the language that will govern this exception in jurisdictions where there's no community solar program and your load serving entity can't allocate PV generation through virtual energy bill credits. And here's the key term: from netting of energy generation and consumption. The last code cycle had a more general virtual net energy metering exception, so you might find this language helps better define whether this exception applies to a project. Now, battery energy storage systems, notice that solar section didn't change a whole lot, but these battery equations have changed a little. In the last code cycle, you took the solar calculation answer and plugged it into the battery equations to calculate your battery size. Now you use conditioned floor area, which makes everything a little bit simpler. Remember, battery storage only applies to high-rise multifamily, 4 or more habitable stories, and non-residential buildings, I should say. And if you use the CFA method for solar, you use equation 170.2e for battery. If you use the SARA method for solar, you use equation 170.2f to basically downsize the battery size by the same percent that you downsized the solar size. I'll show you that in a second. And only buildings that appear on this list of building types are subject to battery requirements. So you might have an applicant not on this list, no battery required. And if you have a multi-use building, you're going to calculate the battery calculation by building type and sum them together, or the performance software will do this for you. So here's the equation. The size of the battery is the conditioned floor area times factor B in this chart, over 1,000 times the round trip efficiency of the battery square root. Let's do an example. 4 stories, climate zone 3, so our factor's 1.88. We've got a 100,000 square foot building, 95% round trip efficiency. You see that gives us a 193 kilowatt hour requirement. That's the energy capacity measured in kWh. Now, if we use SARA to calculate solar, then we use this equation to calculate battery. And you'll notice it's the same first half, but it's now using the ratio of the SARA solar size to what would have been required by the CFA method and downsizing the battery accordingly. Let's look at an example of that. Let's say our SARA was 3,000 square feet. And so our SARA method sized our solar system at 54 kilowatts, but the CFA method would have required 182 kilowatts. Well, we just add this second term and we get 58 kilowatt hours instead of 193 kilowatt hours. This will all happen in the performance software if they're complying via that method too. So that's a big change. CFA as the variable in calculating battery size, not solar size. And this changed too. This was a more complicated equation last code cycle. Now you just take the energy capacity of the battery measured in kWh, divide it by 4, and you get the power capacity of the battery. So for that 193 kilowatt hour battery, works out to 48. For that 58 kilowatt hour battery, it works out to 14.5. We have different set of exceptions for battery. No battery storage systems required if no solar systems required. If the PV capacity is less than 15% of what the CFA method would have calculated, no batteries required. So again, that could happen on tall buildings. It could happen on buildings with lots of HVAC equipment, occupied roof decks, shaded roofs. If the calculated size of the battery is under 10 kilowatt hours, no batteries required. And then a few building types in climate zone 1, but none of you work in climate zone 1. So quick, check your understanding question. Which prescriptive compliance method was removed from the 25 code for lighting in common use areas? Do you remember what it was called? The tailored method. Still got the complete building method, still got the area category method. Number 2, which of these is a valid exception for solar PV in new multifamily? Yep, less than 4 kilowatts in a high-rise multifamily. Any others seem right? Yeah, Mark's got it. Also the low-rise multifamily, same 4 kilowatt exception. But it's no excuse to say we're a mixed-use building. So that brings us to the conclusion. We've got virtual classes you might find useful. Each of these is 2-3 hours. What's new in 25 for non-res? What's new in 25 for res? Here's some of those small bite videos. This is designed to appeal to today's short attention span, all about 5 minutes or less. There's one on Sarah, pools and spas, solar and battery. Might be useful to give to your applicants for more information on certain things. Point you to our fact sheets, which many of you are already using. We've got what's changed. We've got a new one on solar and battery, finishing up one on ADUs right now. This FAQ tool gives you access to commonly asked questions by our help desk, which may answer some of your questions. And if you still have questions, by all means, use the help desk. That goes to some of the Energy Code Ace guru you guys know well, like Gina and Brian, for answers, and they answer super quick. Here's my contact information, as well as that of my commanding officer, Dave Intner, who works for Southern California Edison, and Jill, who runs the Energy Code Ace program. Guillermo, I can open it up to any other questions that people didn't get to ask.
Yeah, if anybody has any follow-up questions for Nick. And Nick, would you be able to send some of this presentation to our secretary so we can?
Of course.
And then we'll also share the video, and our secretary will be sending out the CEUs this coming week. But if anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself.
And Mason, the 4 kilowatt exception is for the entire building.
All right. But thank you, Nick. That was great information.
Yeah? Okay.
All
Good
right.
luck enforcing it. Let us know if you have any questions.
Right. All right. Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining. So we'll see you next month.